how do we apply some of this, what we're talking about, these principles? What's some application? What's some real-world application for us in our context here? Well, I talked about training up our kids from Deuteronomy 6 as the case study for that. Just some thoughts when it comes to raising our children. Do we build intentional time to be with our children? Not to give them an iPad and say, I'll see you in a couple hours, but to be with our children. We just made clear that we need God to be present with us for anything good to happen. How much more so? We need for our kids to have their parents and God with them. Do we prioritize our marriages? Often when I work with couples, with families, they'll send me their child and say, fix them, Chad, fix them. They got A, B, and C wrong with them, fix them. As if it's isolated from the family dynamic. I always ask, how's the marriage going? Are we doing date night? Are we investing in our marriages? Because our kids are watching to see what relationships could or should look like. Do we prioritize having our meals together? A lot of families, everybody fends for themselves at mealtime. They're not in a designated space. They're not talking. I've dealt with families where literally everybody will go to their own room. Are we having meals together? If you read the Bible, you'll see that having a meal together is a very sacred thing. It's universal. It brings people together. It's a great opportunity to invest in our children. Are we intentional about reading, and not just reading God's word, but discussing it with our kids, talking about it? Are we intentional about praying? This idea of being fully dependent on a holy God no matter where we go. This open line of communication, because kids are watching that. Are we being hypocritical in our homes, acting one way at home and then a completely different way when we gather as the church? I've seen many, many young adults leave the faith, and when I ask them one-on-one, where they don't feel any pressure, they're not lying, they're just giving their honest testimony of what they think is happening as far as their rebellion goes. And they say, you know what, Chad? The best parts of the church, I just didn't see them at home. And they were kind of hypocrites, and that really drove me nuts. And it said, is this what the Christian faith is about? Do we model God's character when dealing with difficult people or difficult problems? Do we model asking forgiveness and making things right wherever we can? Here's a question. Do we do that with our children? My wife is very good at this. When she needs to apologize to the kids, because if you're an honest parent, we need to apologize often. We get it wrong a lot. There are some parents that will never, ever do that. Their kids will grow up and their parents have never apologized to them. Are we to take that as their parents have never done wrong? That's such a powerful thing to apologize to your child and to make things right. You're teaching them the way of Jesus. Do we value Christian relationships and Christian community? Is it even important? Do we know why it's important? Are we hospitable to people around us, or do we like to isolate and hoard everything we can for ourselves? Do we welcome our kids' friends and treat them like family, or do we poorly judge them and make them earn our love first? The reality is, and we need to understand that a child is much more likely to rebel because of what they see and learn in the home than because of anything they might be exposed to outside of it. That's a common story. These things are God-given responsibilities the parents have to their children. If you put your kids in a Christian private school and you don't do any of these things, there will be trouble. If you homeschool your kids and your home environment is not Christ-like, there will be trouble. Are we teaching as families, are we teaching our kids to complain and get angry and bitter about the state of affairs in the world? Or are we acting like Christ meant it when he said it's finished? That he has victory over death and all evil. Do we believe that? A very practical thing that we could do is take scenarios that we're going to run up against in our world and practice them together with our kids. This will not only build relationships, it'll build your relationship and make it go deeper, but you're also equipping them to be the salt and the light while helping them to actually own their Christian faith for themselves. And we need to understand that at the end of the day, our kids, they don't receive our faith by proxy. They have to own their faith for themselves. They are the ones individually. We all stand before Jesus to give account. We can't own their faith for them. We want to develop them so that they can give an account and testify to who God is and what he's done in their lives. We want to train them and equip them to be able to do that without fear or anger. The fruits of the Spirit should come out of us. So that's training up a child, things to think about as far as application in this conversation. Then I want to talk about one more applicable situation that a lot of us in the public sphere are running into, not just in schools, but at work.